You are listening to Radio Maria Canada. We now present the Health Hub, hosted by Kathy Biasi.
Welcome to the Health Hub on Radio Maria Canada, exploring cutting-edge health and wellness information and therapies, helping you to take your health to the next level. I'm your host, Kathy Biasi, and I'm an holistic nutritionist and a professional cancer coach. On today's show, we are going to get a little sciencey as we talk about a naturally occurring carbon called carbon-60 or C60. It was discovered in 1985 at Rice University in Houston, Texas. Before its discovery, naturally occurring carbon was known to exist in only two structural forms, diamonds and graphite. ESS60 is the purest form of carbon-60, produced specifically for safe human consumption. And this is where it gets interesting for us. And to lead the conversation is our guest today, Chris Burres. Chris is a published author, host of the Uncovering the Secrets to Longevity Health Summit, and patent holder with a surprising twist. He's not just a visionary scientist, but also a master of comedy improv. Chris is the founder and chief scientist at MyVitalC, where he manufactures a Nobel Prize winning molecule responsible for the single longest longevity experiment results in history, a full 90% extension of life. He is the intersection where science meets laughter, and his life's mission is to help people live longer, healthier, happier, pain-free lives with science. We talk about what ESS60 is. We talk about how it improves health and longevity and how long Chris believes that humans can live and why. This is a supplement that he is creating or has created. And we talk about all the health benefits, why there are health benefits, mechanisms of action. Really interesting conversationalist, Chris is. You'll find him very enjoyable to listen to and a lot of great information coming your way. So do stay tuned. We will be back in just a few minutes to speak with Chris Burres.
You are listening to Radio Maria Canada. We now continue with the program, The Health Hub, hosted by Kathy Biasi.
Welcome back to the Health Hub, everybody. Please do follow us on our social sites. We are on Instagram, X, and Facebook, and we are at the Health Hub RMC on those locations. Chris, welcome to our show today.
Kathy, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to connect with you.
Yeah, it's going to be a great show. It's a little bit different than what we normally do. We're getting a little science-y today. So I love that. And I think it does everybody some good to get knowledge in a space that they may not be too familiar with. So let's dive right into it. You are working, so your company is called MyVitalC, and we're going to get into exactly what that is when, as the show progresses. But I think we better lay the foundation here. And can you tell us what this molecule, this Nobel Prize winning molecule is that you manufacture?
Yeah, so I've been manufacturing this molecule since 1991. The molecule looks like a soccer ball. So if you think about a soccer ball and think that the lines on the soccer ball represent the bonds between the carbon atoms, you have a spherical molecule of 60 carbon atoms. We call the molecule ESS60, and it was discovered in 1985, and the scientists who discovered it won the Nobel Prize in 1996 for that discovery. So a short 11 years from discovery to being awarded the Nobel Prize. The molecule, so we're on a health podcast. I'm going to first scare you, and then we can kind of bring the story back. The molecule is amazing in almost every industrial application. So it makes better inks, better tires, better batteries, better photocells. And that's where people sometimes get nervous because they're like, I never looked at a car battery and thought how much of or what of that car battery should I be taking on a daily basis. And then the story gets a little more scary because of some of the shapes on the exterior of that soccer ball cage, the soccer ball shaped molecule. They're reminiscent of benzene. Benzene is ubiquitous in our society. If you just kind of glance around, anything that's plastic has benzene ring as a base molecule. But benzene on its own is known to be toxic. So because the benzene ring shape is on this exterior of this soccer ball shaped molecule, they thought the molecule would be toxic. They put it in a toxicity study, and now the story starts to get a little bit better. Instead of being toxic, and actually in that study, they gave rats water. In this case, it was Wistar rats water, olive oil, and then olive oil with this ESS60 molecule. Instead of being toxic, the test subjects that they give the olive oil with the ESS60 molecule, really the MyVitalC formula, lived 90% longer than the control group. So the single longest longevity experimental result in mammals, peer-reviewed published research in history is because of the MyVitalC formula. And that's really kind of what brings me here today.
Okay, we're not talking about vitamin C.
No, it's C as in carbon, right? So you see the sign behind me, however the mirror works. MyVitalC as in carbon, and we call the molecule ESS60. ESS stands for elemental safe spheres, and there's 60 carbon atoms in that molecule.
Would this be considered a carrier molecule, or is this the molecule of interest for us taking your product?
That's a great question. So it really is the molecule of interest. I'm super geeky. I've been working with this molecule for 33 plus years. The shape of it is such that, and this is kind of the reason they won the Nobel Prize, it's the first closed cage molecule that they ever discovered. If you think about a soccer ball, there's no loose ends on a soccer ball. If you think about every other molecule, it kind of ends dangling off in space. That cage that it creates, that space in the middle, is big enough for any atom on the periodic chart to fit inside of, and that creates this kind of potential carrier. But in our case, what we're really talking about is this molecule's positive impact. We know from back when it was discovered, discovered in 85, Nobel Prize in 96, we know that it can hold up to 6 negatively charged particles, and that'll become very relevant here as we talk about kind of mechanisms.
Okay, well, we know carbon has been around since the beginning of time, and there are different types of carbon. How was this one discovered? I mean, was the scientist looking for something in particular?
So that's a fantastic question. And I actually do cover this. I wrote a book called Live Longer and Better. It is the story of the discovery of this ESS60 molecule and its kind of path into the health space. The reason it was discovered is because there was an astrophysicist out of the UK, Sir Harold Kroto. They knighted him after he won the Nobel Prize, who was looking out into space, and he saw a particular spectrum, a particular light wave that he couldn't attribute to any molecules that he kind of recognized would be out there. And he thought it might be associated with carbon because carbon is ubiquitous. It's everywhere. And so he came to Houston at Rice University, where they had a piece of equipment, super fancy piece of equipment, that could shine a laser on a sample, vaporize that sample, and then take that vaporized gas into what's called a mass spectrometer and then do analysis on that gas. He brought it here to Houston. He came to Houston and said, hey, the guy in charge of that particular piece of equipment was Dr. Richard Smalley. He's one of the Nobel Prize winners. So you got Sir Harold Kroto, Richard Smalley, and Robert Curl are the 3 Nobel Prize winners. So Sir Harold Kroto came over to Richard Smalley and was like, hey, I want to throw carbon in your fancy machine. And it's kind of a funny story. Actually, Richard Smalley was like, no, I don't want to put boring carbon in my machine. I'm doing really sexy things like titanium and, exotic steels. And he actually was rebuked on 3 occasions. He came over here from the UK. Finally, one of Richard Smalley's grad students said, listen, I'm coming over the weekend, Sir Harold Croto. I'm going to throw boring carbon into it. And they ended up with the results that led to the discovery of this molecule and a whole class of molecules called fullerenes.
Okay. And why did you write a book about this?
That's a great question. So I tend to do so I have a podcast, Live Beyond the Norms podcast. It's a health and longevity podcast. And I've had previous podcasts. I've always felt two things about putting information and creating information for consumption. One of them is very selfish, which is I learn the material better if I'm getting prepared and actually teaching people about the material. So part of the book was like, let me cement all of the stuff that I'm accumulating into my own mind. And then second, I just really feel that there's value in sharing and giving back, right? I'm in a unique position where I get to wake up every day. Like right now, I wake up every day, I'm doing deep research on health. How can we improve our health? How can we improve our longevity? And I just feel a responsibility to share that. So Live Longer and Better is a book about one, the story, because it's a pretty amazing story. I was very lucky to be in Houston at the ground floor at the very beginning of this amazing journey of this amazing molecule. And I think it's a very interesting story, and I wanted to share that story. And then as I dig more into longevity, I wanted to cement that longevity knowledge in my own mind and then also share it with as many people as possible.
How did you become entrepreneurial with this specific molecule, with the product that you've created? Is it something you've always wanted to do, or were you hitting the head with it in Houston on this particular day?
I think it's a little bit of all of what you just described. It's also in the book, Live Longer and Better. The reality is, I wish there were a lot of people in the health space have this pain to passion stories, right? Where they've got the challenges of themselves or a loved one, and they've dug in and they, dug into the science and dug into supplements or, treatment protocols and actually solved it. And now they want to save the world. I love those people. I just didn't end up here that way, really for two reasons. So first, when I was 14, on my wall, like a lot of 14-year-olds my age, I had a picture of a Lamborghini Countach. Bright red, the doors were open, I could smell the leather. This was something that at some point in my life I'm going to have. I also found an article, I think it was probably in like Motor Trend or one of those Motorhead magazines, of how do you get a Lamborghini Countach? And the first part of the article was, hey, if you want one Lamborghini Countach, you should become a neurosurgeon. If you want more than one Lamborghini Countach, you should become an entrepreneur. And it was really that simple. I had no idea what I was going to do. If I look back on kind of my youth and what I'm doing now and the value that people are getting from our products, I've always been intently focused on people and helping people and providing guidance to people. And so those things kind of marry. So one of the pieces is I didn't know that I was going to be in this particular industry. And then if you look at the second level, I was in this particular industry specifically as a carbon nanomaterial scientist, selling research quantities of these materials to universities and research institutions around the world. Then it became a health supplement. So, how I landed exactly in this spot is kind of serendipitous, I guess.
So educationally, you've always wanted to be in the science field?
Well, if you think about what is a young kid who's going to college, and my family, we never really talked about college. It was just understood that we were going. So I graduated from high school and had not applied anywhere. My dad ended up getting a job in Houston, and so I came down to the University of Houston and applied. Now, what does a young kid who's already decided he's going to be an entrepreneur, what do they study? And again, this is in my book, Live Longer and Better. At the time, when I went back and did the research, there was literally only one entrepreneurial course in the country. And this wasn't a coursework. This is one class. Now there's entrepreneurial classes all over the place. I'm not even sure, though, that I would have gone down that path because my thought process was, well, one, I am good in math and science. I always have been. And what was the fastest way to the highest salary so that I could have money to invest in a company? Like, this is my thought process. And engineering is one of those ways. And so I ended up studying mechanical engineering. I got a minor in computer science and a minor in math from the University of Houston. Go Cougs.
And now you're an author. Does that surprise you?
It kind of does. Yeah. I would say, I don't know. I think if people are like me, there's some sort of inclining, oh, writing a book sounds wonderful and, potentially painful or whatever. But it certainly wasn't really on my radar until I started getting into getting onto podcasts and delivering value to people and thinking about how could I deliver more value to more people, just easier. And that's when I said, it was really kind of the beginning of pandemic. I really do need to write a book. And I fortunately came across my co-author. He's a two-time, I'm so lucky. He's a two-time New York Times #1 bestseller, right? So to get on the New York Times bestseller list is a Herculean effort. To get onto the #1 position and to do it twice, Jerome Corsi is actually amazing. And so we ended up sitting down and writing the book together, and I'm very happy with what we produced, and it's filling the goal that I was hoping it would.
What is the book about?
It's really about kind of my life from the beginning. I grew up, my dad was in the Air Force. We moved every 2 years, some life lessons from there. It's about an entrepreneurial kid, how he becomes an entrepreneur. It's about where he lands, right? So I actually started a company before I even graduated from engineering school. And then how does that turn into a health supplement? And then kind of the wrap up, and it's actually about 2 of the 5 chapters are about longevity and where does it look like we're going with this whole longevity, this what Peter Attia calls health 3.0.
Is this something that the average-minded person can take a bite out of, or is this directed at a particular audience?
I think the average person could absolutely enjoy this book. And that's probably not because of me. That would be because of
I'm sure it is.
No, it's because of Jerome. So kind of interesting story. In my mind, I got connected with Jerome. He signed on to the project. We're off and running. And in my mind, he was going to listen to a number of interviews that I've done. He was going to interview me directly. He was going to go off and write this fantastic book, come back to me. I was going to read it once, and we're going to good, this is, let's get this published. And what happened is our first meeting, he was like, Chris, so I need you to write your story down. And I was like, I guess I'm going to write my story down. And so I would spend a couple hours a week writing down different pieces of the story, trying to piece them together and then turn them over to Jerry. And he would turn them into prose and turn them into something that was readable and consistent and made sense. And so I would rest the readability at any level on Jerome.
Well, interesting. I know we're getting a little off topic here, but what was your hook? Like this New York Times best-selling author, you never have been an author. How did you land him to be co-author? What was this is what we're writing about, it's novel.
Yeah.
Was it the molecule?
He was taking our product and loved the results he was getting.
Okay.
And so he reached out to me. And we're having this great conversation, but we've all had conversations like, are we just going to be friends the rest of our life? Or are we, maybe we'll never talk again, but it's a great conversation. We've all had those conversations. And at one point I just kind of Googled him, looked him up and saw that he was a 2-time New York Times best-selling author. And I was like, oh, that's why we're talking. 'Cause he's going to be my co-author. Like that's in my head. Right. And then it worked out because he was in the right place to help me and loves the product. He's still a customer. He actually refuses to take free product. product. He's still a customer, and actually, I just arranged with him. My wife and I go up to New Jersey every year. He's based in New Jersey, so we go into Manhattan and have dinner with him every year. And he's a character with a long history in different industries, and just amazing to spend time with.
Oh, it's a lovely story. Your company, how long has it been around? Because I
So we-
honestly haven't heard of you until you became on my radar screen for the podcast.
Yeah, so we've been manufacturing this molecule since 1991. So you think about discovered in 85, Nobel Prize in 96. We were manufacturing the molecule 5 years prior to them winning the Nobel Prize. In fact, it's not disingenuous to say that us having macroscopic, so quantities of the material in the hands of scientists that they could actually do work with, is probably part of the reason they won the Nobel Prize, right? So that's not on our shoulders, but we certainly helped that situation. So since 1991, from 1991 until really the middle of 2013, we were entirely focused on delivering commercial quantities of carbon nanomaterials to research institutions around the world. And we still do that today. It was around 2013, and I can share the story. So the publication came out where the rats lived 90% longer. And I'll just share our most consistent testimonials. People take the product in the morning, they report mental focus and energy during the day, and then better sleep that night. And so the publication came out in mid 2012. By mid 2013, we started getting phone calls, and it was like, hey, how much of this stuff should I take? And my business partner and I at the time are super conservative, carbon nanomaterial scientists. And we're thinking, the question we're hearing is, hey, that stuff that you sell to research institutions around the world to put into inks, batteries, tires, and photocells, how much of it should I be consuming daily? And we thought, yeah, probably zero. And we actually added not for human consumption to our labeling in mid 2013. So start the company, start selling in 1991, all the way to mid 2013. We don't even need to have not for human consumption on our labeling. And then the next course of action is kind of interesting. So from mid 2013, really until the latter part of 2017, we would get 2 to 3 calls a week, and it would be amazing. Like this guy, people would say, "Hey, my knee pain is gone," and we would say, "You mean the knee pain of your rat?" Because it literally says "not for human consumption" on the labeling. And they would say, yeah, my rat's knee pain. Hey, if my rat weighed 275 pounds, how much should my rat be taking on a daily basis? It's a big rat. And that was happening from mid 2013 to 2017. My business partner and I would get together really every quarter and say, hey, do we want to get into this market? The reality is the supplement market I kind of picture as very challenged. There's a lot of challenges in the market. It's very different than delivering commercial quantities of carbon nanomaterials to research institutions. And so, every quarter my business partner would talk about it. We'd say, no, this is not really a market we want to be in. Finally, in fact, before we really brought it to market, I found a peer-reviewed published research paper that showed 50% of the supplements this research team had purchased off the market did not have in them what they said they had in them, right? So this is a very challenged market. It's exactly what we didn't want to get into. And finally, in 2017, a guy with a big YouTube following started talking about all the benefits he was getting taking it on a daily basis. Our phone went from ringing 2 to 3 times a week to 10 times a day. And my business partner were like, okay, I guess we're going down this path, right? Our customers are kind of really leading us down this path. We asked ourselves 2 questions. The first question is a moral question. Are we comfortable selling it? I take it. My wife takes it. Everybody on our team here takes it. By the way, it's not a requirement to work here, but they just see the testimonials and they read the research, and so everyone here takes it. So definitely comfortable on a moral level. And then the next is legal, like with the FTC and FDA. You got to dot the I's, cross the T's, and then ever since 2017, we're off and running, and coming on to shows. Graciously, you've invited me here and to share this amazing research with as many people as possible.
Amazing story. We're going to take a break, everybody. When we get back, we're going to dive into where ESS60 crosses longevity, how it all works, bring it all together, and give you all the contact information for the rest of your life and your longevity path. So we'll just take a quick break, and we'll be back in just a few minutes.
You are listening to The Health Hub here on Radio Maria Canada, a Catholic voice wherever you are. To contact us and be a part of the show, email thh@radiomaria.ca. We now continue with the program. Here once again is your host, Kathy Biasi.
Welcome back to the Health Hub, everybody. We're going to get in on our second half of the show to how this molecule, this carbon molecule, actually impacts longevity, why you should be taking it or considering taking it, side effects, and a whole bunch. So let's start with mechanism of action. Why does this product improve longevity?
So I kind of just shared the story of, okay, we're not interested in getting into the supplement market. Finally, our customers kind of put enough pressure on us, and so we start getting into the supplement market. And then my role in the company was, one, to get on and have conversations, which means I need to understand, like, how is this working? Like, what's going on? And so we've got a couple of ideas. The first that came to mind is, well, remember, our most consistent testimonials, people take it in the morning, they report mental focus and energy during the day, and then better sleep that night. Mm-hmm. We all have this understanding that if you improve sleep, that's good for your mental, physical, and emotional well-being, right? So if that's all we did, then that would be amazing, and that would explain all of our testimonials. But we think we do more, and so we'll talk about that. If you were to ask a group of medical practitioners, what is aging? A lot of the consensus is around aging is oxidation and inflammation. So let me talk about oxidation first. So there's an ad hoc study on the web that shows our product to be 172 times more powerful than vitamin C. And then there's a peer-reviewed published research paper showing it to be 125 times more powerful than vitamin C, right? Like vitamin C is the thing, we happen right now. Probably when this comes out, we'll be a little past it, but we're going into, the holidays. This is when people get the sniffles and flus, and they're
people are so sick here.
Right?
Oh, yes.
And vitamin C is a go-to, right? You lean on it, you feel something coming, like, let me double up my vitamin C, let me drink some orange juice. Well, this is 125 times more powerful than vitamin C. So we check that box, that antioxidant box. The next is inflammation, and we have to be really careful with inflammation. The FDA has decided that talking about chronic inflammation is talking about the diseases of inflammation, which are also the diseases of aging. So that's arthritis, Alzheimer's, cardiovascular diseases, cancers. So you have to be really careful as we talk about it. What the FDA will let us say is that we address inflammation as it relates to exercise-induced inflammation, right? So we've all had a tough workout or just walked a long ways one day and woken up that next day and felt that inflammation in our body. We absolutely address that type of inflammation. The other types of inflammation, again, we just need a lot more research. By the way, it's extremely expensive. We're working on it. It's going to take a while. But what we can say, what we can wrap that kind of piece up with, is that we fit perfectly in an anti-inflammatory diet, right? So our product is literally the molecule, the ESS60 molecule, and extra virgin olive oil, right? So a high quality extra virgin olive oil, which is already an amazing oil. You should be taking more. I love what Dr. Gundry says, that the purpose of food is to get more olive oil into your mouth. If people aren't aware of him, he's a 4-time New York Times bestselling author. I don't think he got to number 1, but he's amazing. So we fit perfectly in that anti-inflammatory diet. That's a diet associated with the blue zones. Those people tend to live longer. They tend to have reduced incidences of stroke and reduced incidences of heart attack. We fit perfectly in that diet. So that was kind of my second theory. We have this kind of final theory that is pretty solid. I mean, we literally have testimonials from head to toe. By the way, let me go ahead and let me dot an I and cross a T here. The FDA has not evaluated our product. It is not intended to treat, diagnose, prevent, or cure any disease. When I share testimonials, I just imagine this won't happen for you. Dig into the research, make a decision for yourself. But we have head to toe testimonials, right? And hair growing in, original color, that's pretty amazing. The toe is kind of actually stunning. We've got an influencer who actually at one point in his career was a Navy SEAL. At 5 years old, a crab bit his big toe and split his big toenail. It healed at 65 after he started taking our product. So from 5 years old until 65, at an age when you're not expecting things like that to heal, it actually healed. So we have head to toe testimonials. What really explains that? Again, it could be sleep, but we think it's what we call the boss theory. So we know from peer-reviewed published research that this ESS60 molecule gets into the mitochondria. I'm going to get a little geeky here, but I got a good analogy at the end to kind of pull it all together. Your mitochondria is the powerhouse of every cell in your body. Every cell in your body has mitochondria. In fact, they have between 50 and 5,000 mitochondria, except for your blood cells, which have 0, and your nerves and brain cells, which have 2 million. That's how much energy our nervous system and our brain, our thought processes, although it feels like that's not true for some people, but it uses 2 million of these mitochondria to produce energy. Just like any energy source on the planet, there's negative byproducts, right? Your car going down the road has exhaust. Your power plant has a smokestack. The negative byproduct of mitochondria is called reactive oxygen species. These are negatively charged particles that when they're left to do their own thing, I kind of picture them as, little bumper cars running in and rusting and damaging everything that they bump into. Inside of the mitochondria, you have 2 components that are supposed to manage the reactive oxygen species. They are antioxidants, and it's glutathione and melatonin. And yes, melatonin is the sleep hormone. We've already talked about kind of our consistent testimonial about sleep. There is some parallels here. When a mitochondria gets overwhelmed, when the glutathione and melatonin are not available to actually manage those reactive oxygen species, that's when they can run around and do damage. And that's when we think this ESS60 molecule comes into play. Remember, earlier I mentioned it could hold up to 6 negatively charged particles. Reactive oxygen species are negatively charged particles. So we believe that this ESS60 molecule can hold up to 6 negatively charged particles. So here's my kind of fun analogy. It's Mardi Gras. Mardi Gras is over. You're on Bourbon Street in New Orleans, and the drunk reactive oxygen species are running around doing damage, right? Like those little bumper cars. The police, the glutathione and melatonin, come in and handcuff themselves to these reactive oxygen species and get them off of Bourbon Street. But what do the New Orleans police do when they're overwhelmed? They stick these reactive oxygen species into a paddy wagon, right? 6 negatively charged particles can be held on the exterior of this soccer ball shaped molecule, and then those reactive oxygen species can't do damage. When that mitochondria is able to, or the police department is able to replenish the glutathione and the melatonin, they can then come in, handcuff themselves to these reactive oxygen species and get them off of Bourbon Street. And so that's why we think we have head-to-toe testimonials.
Got it. Now, what supplements can fall away when you're on MyVitalC? You talked about glutathione. Precursors to glutathione, or is it a different mechanism of action?
Well, so if you think about that scenario, the glutathione is a necessary component to actually get them off of Bourbon Street. This just prevents them from doing damage.
Okay.
Right. So I still take my kind of standard regimen. I'm a big proponent. Like if we just want to talk supplements real quick, I can geek out on that. But creatine is high on my list. It's great for mental function, great for muscular function. I do take a vitamin. Actually, I take a Dave Asprey's. He's got a DAKNE. DAKNE. Those are, I think, people are often deficient in those, and you want to make sure that you're taking those. And then I do take vitamin C, although it's not. Actually, it's kind of more for flavor and part of a routine, almost like my coffee. And then that's really where I land. I'm always trying a bunch of different stuff, but those are the key ones.
Well, that makes sense, especially in your field. But I mean, things are coming to market, and it makes sense. I always like to err on the side of caution when we're talking about supplements. Who, or if any, should be avoiding this supplement?
Well, because it's so early, like this is really a cutting edge supplement, cutting edge technology. You always lean on women intent on getting pregnant or pregnant and nursing women, and then young children. It's just too early. There's no reason to take it. Wait until you're into your teens before you start taking it. Other than that, I mean, we do get questions regularly. We have tens of thousands of customers. They run the gamut of health, and are on all sorts of supplementations, protocols, or on their own medications. And we have yet to have any sort of counterindication with any sort of anything out there. Now, if this is something that your physician has prescribed, it's probably a good idea to have a conversation with them. If you're doing that, you probably want to bring them some research. They probably have not heard of this molecule.
Well, yeah, fair. So we're talking about medication interaction, people that have cancer, heart disease. So far, nothing to stand in the way of taking the supplement. Okay, perfect. Now you had a longevity summit, is that correct?
Yes.
A lot came from that. Let's start off with this question. How long do you think that we can live?
Oh, that's a great question. I think it has two parts. And the first part is like where we are today. I think 122. Actually, that turns out to be I think that's the current longest lived person, Jean Clement. She lived to 122. Interesting lady. She actually quit smoking because she couldn't see well enough to light her cigarette. So she was not following, a lot of the health protocols that I intend on following, and that a lot of people intend on following. I also think, so that's the first kind of up front. And I think that there's a thing called the longevity escape velocity, which says at some point the medical community will be able to extend our life by more than a day each day, right? So each day that passes, medical community has extended life. I think that at some point we will live forever. I think that if you look at the fact that we can take any one of your cells, Kathy, and we can actually make a baby Kathy from that cell, right? So cloning is absolutely possible. So all of the information, and David Sinclair really pushed this forward as the kind of information theory of aging. All of the information to have a younger you is in every cell in your body. We just got to figure out how to turn that on. And if you think about how quickly that's going to happen, because I think it is going to happen, I also think it's going to happen a lot faster than people realize. In this piece of data is just crazy. In 1950, medical information doubled every 50 years, every 5 years. Information right now doubles every 3 months. So at the end of this year, we will have, 2, 4, 6, 8 times, 16 times as much information, medical information, as we did at the beginning of the year. And that doesn't really take into account AI, right? Because that number that we double every 3 months is kind of earlier this year or whatever. AI, it helps you write papers faster, but I think what's going to be most important about AI is its ability to process large amounts of data and say, hey, don't even bother with that research. Focus on this because this is where the real opportunities are. And so by converting, not only are we creating information, medical information to the point where we'll have 16 times more information at the end of this year, it's going to get better. I also think it's going to continue to get. I actually did a little AI. I used AI to figure out in 10 years, that information is going to be doubling like every 15 minutes. So if it's possible, it's going to happen a lot faster than we realize.
When we talk about longevity, I think, what pops into my mind, I'm certainly not going to speak to everybody, is someone who's moved seamlessly throughout life, taking care of themselves. And longevity is that part of their life that they are working on to obviously increase lifespan. Most, if not all of us, will be touched by, I shouldn't say all of us, most of us will be touched by some sort of a incident, disease, a health issue. When we talk about longevity, I don't hear that spoken about, like overcoming disease and still having longevity, living with disease and still having longevity. Did anything like that come about from your summit?
Yeah. and I'll so interestingly, I think the I'm going to tell this story in a couple of ways. When I share the initial research with the MyVitalC product, where the test subjects live 90% longer, initially and still to today, I'll share that, and people are like, "Why would I want to live longer?" And what's happening is people can't separate exactly what you're asking. Separate living from infirmed, being in a infirm state to living longer. Like it's just people can't separate that information. If I change the question, I'm like, Kathy, if you had the same mental capacity that you have today and you have the same physical capacity that you have today, would you then be interested in living longer? And that's when people start to shift. They start to think about it differently. In this summit, I interviewed 55 experts in longevity. I asked every one of them, how long do you intend to live and how long can humans live? And only 3 of the experts gave the same number, right? Okay. So we've got 52 people said that they intend to live shorter than they think humans can live. And again, that's because even the experts in longevity who are thinking about it, who are anticipating it, who are hoping for it, like who make their careers off of it, still can't separate living infirmed from longevity, from living longer. And so I think that we're going to have a quantum shift in the medical community. This is why David Sinclair's work is so important. And he certainly has his controversies, but his work is so important to get that mindset to change, to like, yes, what's the point of living longer if we're in a disease state? When you start talking about the diseases of aging and longevity, one of the things people think is like, if we solve cancer, people will live a lot longer. And the actual answer is if you solve any one of the diseases of aging, the next one steps into place pretty quickly. So you solve cancer, we live 5 years longer.
Well,
like that's not what,
yeah, and this is sort of where I'm getting my question at. Not what do we want to look like if we're 120, but those of us, so I've had breast cancer, those of us who have dealt with a serious illness, is that an impotence for longevity as we look into upcoming 50 years ago, absolutely. But can you live a healthy, viable, long life after having serious disease? Is that a piece that people are talking about when we're speaking about longevity? Absolutely.
Yeah, so these 55 experts, a lot of them have the pain to passion story that I kind of mentioned earlier, where, one that pops into mind, suffering from rheumatoid arthritis, told to go on a medication that had, a number of side effects that were unacceptable to her, and then really digging in and figuring out that the problem was actually what she was eating. And actually, that is one of the most consistent stories is we're aware that food allergies exist, and most of us are probably aware that we don't necessarily have food allergies and we could go get tested. What I think a lot of people are not aware of is there's food sensitivities, and those sensitivities are causing chronic inflammation and chronic diseases. And so we have to address what we're putting into our body first in order to start addressing these chronic diseases of aging and just chronic diseases.
So we can move past it. You think that someone who's been afflicted with a disease earlier on in life still has potential for longevity because of what you're seeing in the hopper?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. I mean, if you think, again, with medical information doubling every 3 months, if it's possible, it's just going to happen a lot faster than we think.
Got it. Chris, what a great conversation. Very, very interesting. I love the topics we covered. Tell us where people can find your book, find out more about the product. Now, we are in Canada. We're Canadian-based. Are you delivering worldwide?
Yes, we actually have an NPN number.
Okay. Yeah.
So we can actually warehouse it in Canada, and we ship directly to Canada regularly. And we made a URL especially for your audience. It's MyVitalC, again, C as in carbon, myvitalc.com/THHRMC. I think that's a code that your audience might be familiar with. There is a coupon code for $15 off. It is for your audience. It is at that link, myvitalc.com/THHRMC. When you go to that page, you'll find our products. We recommend the olive oil product. We actually have an olive oil, avocado, and MCT. We recommend the olive oil product. You get a significant discount, like a 25% discount to go on subscription. Even if you just want to try it, go on subscription. You can cancel at any time. Our customer service team has like 950 five-star reviews on Google. They're not trained to talk you out of canceling. They're just trained to help you. And by the way, they're a wealth of information if you have any questions. The book is available on Amazon. It is also available on our website on that same link. I think you'll probably have to go into the menu structure once you land on that page. Okay. I am doing a charity piece, which I really love. You can buy the book for $20 on Amazon, $20 on our website. If you get a signed copy, it's $10 extra for the signature, or $15 if you want both Jerome and I to sign it. 100% of that signature fee goes to Operation Underground Railroad. There was a movie called The Sound of Freedom recently that addresses child sex trafficking, and that's what Operation Underground Railroad does. I actually had a chance to see him speak before the movie came out. And so 100% of the signature fee goes to Operation Underground Railroad.
Wonderful. What a great idea. Well, Chris, thank you so much for joining us today. Great conversation.
Thank you so much, Kathy.
Everybody, we'll talk to you next week on The Health Hub.
You have been listening to The Health Hub, hosted by Kathy Biasi, here on Radio Maria Canada.